Welcome to another episode of the Agency Series on the Get Your Act Together podcast. Today, I would like to welcome to the podcast Audra King. Hi, Audra.
Hello.
So, Audra, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do and what your business is?
Yeah, I would love to. So I am a teacher turned graphic designer turned agency owner turned business strategy and coach. So I have had quite the journey, but everything that I have experienced, I find just serves me better in every iteration of my business. And I have been able to really focus in on two things as I've grown my business recently. And that is when women create wealth, we make the world a better place. And my cat just sneezed. I'm so sorry. Let me start that over again.
You can. That's okay. We couldn't get a meow out of the last interview, so it's pretty funny.
I have two driving beliefs in my business. One is that when women create wealth, we make the world a better place. And that's really the driving force behind why I created She Loves Her Biz. And then the other is to always follow the fun. So I'm always trying to apply both of those, both to my personal life and my business life.
I love that. Like, I feel like we're going to talk a lot about all this stuff because this is so much at the heart of a lot of the things that I talk about as well, that money isn't a bad thing.
Right.
And you need to have a good life because we shouldn't
totally
all work each other into the ground. Right.
Exactly. And that hustle culture is not serving any of us well. And it's time to rewrite that narrative, I think.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us coming from corporate, that is a lot of us, right? We come from corporate, we want to get out of there. And then we have this business and then we basically do that to ourselves all over again.
Yes.
Yes,
exactly. So, yes.
Right? I want to get out of this crazy world. I'm going to make the world exactly the same when I go and do it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we're all burned out.
Yeah. And I think it's what's familiar and what we our culture and our society has led us to expect. And so that process of kind of breaking out of that mindset, it takes, at least in my experience and a lot of the people that I work with, it takes some time and some really intentional effort and reflection is a big piece of it too, to say, oh, wait a minute, let's put the brakes on, take a step back, decide what we really want, and then build it out from there, instead of using a model that I think is based on false assumptions of like what actually makes people happy and what we want out of our lives.
Yeah. And I've talked about this before on the podcast, but the making those intentional decisions, like I wanted to be around for my child more, or I wanted to be able to go paddleboarding on a Friday morning. And those weren't decisions. Instead of working 15-hour days to make more money, I wanted the freedom, which I think a lot of us start businesses for the freedom, quote unquote. And then we forget that we actually wanted that.
Yeah. It's easy to get caught up in the details, right? In the day-to-day to-do list.
And then the clients ask more and more of you and you feel like I have to, right? It's so hard. Even to this day, I've been in business for 6.5 years and I preach about it. And it's still hard for me to be like, I've got to walk away from my desk. I'm going to shut my notifications off.
When I launched She Loves Her Biz, I had worked as a teacher. And if you are a teacher or you know a teacher, you love a teacher, you know that sometimes the hours and the workload and just the mental load that you carry can be overwhelming. And kind of like you, I wanted to, I had a 2-year-old at the time I left teaching, and I realized I was bringing so much of my work home, both physically and mentally, that I wasn't able to balance, how I wanted to show up as a mother and then how I wanted to show up to my students and my colleagues. And so I decided to start my business. I started a freelance graphic design business that really focused on helping course creators and content creators create educational materials. It made a lot of sense based on my background. So I did workbooks and course outlines and that kind of thing. And then I realized what I really loved was strategy and business building. I became fascinated by business building. But along the way, I had gathered up all of these beautiful, wonderful people in my network that I got connected with. And I realized I wanted to bridge the gap between entrepreneurs who needed, graphic designers, web designers, copywriters, to be able to successfully build wealth in their business, and these lovely people who, were really, really good at what they did, but maybe, didn't want to have to work so hard to find clients, et cetera. And so I didn't realize I was launching an agency when I launched She Loves Her Biz. Our 2-year birthday is in September. So happy birthday to us.
Happy birthday. That's great.
But I was like, I just want to connect people. I love being a connector. And so I launched She Loves Her Biz. Couple months later, someone said, "Oh, you run an agency." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I do." But it was, the idea was being able to free up time and space to be able to show up. Because even as a graphic designer, I think when you first start any new business, it's easy to get, kind of overwhelmed and bogged down in the details. And so I was looking for a place where I could find more balance. And I think having a team within an agency has really helped, because it's not all on me anymore. It's we share the load and also share the rewards.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think that every single person I've talked to that has an agency is like, I didn't know I was gonna have an agency. Like, I think it's like 99% of people, they have too much work, or they want to connect you. Like there's different reasons, but all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is an agency. And it's so
Right.
funny because it's something most people fall into instead of, I'm going to create an agent. Like it's not the thing that most people say, I'm gonna go do this.
And I love hearing that, because I felt, a little silly when I looked back and I was like, oh yeah, duh, I'm created an agency. But until you start, in that world, I think at least in my case, I didn't identify that that's what I was doing. I just knew that I saw a need, and I knew that I wanted to help meet that need. And that was the way that I came up with to do it.
Yeah, because I think some of us think of agency as like Mad Men, like an ad agency. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And we're not that. So like we don't see ourselves anything like that.
Right.
So we're not an agency. And then you start doing the work, and then you like, I have client facing team members who handle the work. And I'm like, oh, like I didn't even think I realized I was an agency for a while either. I was just a person
Hmm.
with help.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
you
And then
know,
you
one
slowly
dis-
have this realization.
One distinction I learned, I took a course with Tasha Booth.
Hmm.
She has a VA agency, and then she also has a course for agency owners. And a distinction that she made that really kind of helped me crystallize what is an agency owner, at least how she defines it, is that when you are an agency as opposed to someone with a team who provides services, the agency owner is, stepped back from the day-to-day implementation. And that doesn't mean that there's no implementation, and it's a gradual process, but more stepping into the role of, setting the direction for the business, high level decision making, that kind of role versus being more involved in the day-to-day.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I feel like agency is so much about one, having like that kind of client facing book of business part. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
a team you're handling stuff in the background with. And then yeah, it's the leadership. I will say
Yeah.
that I'm a little bit more fuzzy on those lines with the leader. Only because I think, like, especially for me, I didn't want to just be the marketer in chief. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't just want to be um I don't know, the one who looks at financial projections and does the
Right.
marketing. Like, I still wanted to do some of the work because the work is what I really liked. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a less defined on that than I know she is.
Well, and I think there's room to play there, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why we created our own business, because we want to have the autonomy to decide, like, what is my role and what do I want to take on.
Hmm.
And I know, like with my agency, I have a graphic designer who does branding and logo. I have a web designer. I have a copywriter, but I still like to dabble a little bit in the sales copy,
Yeah.
and really what I love is the strategy piece. And so as I build out my agency, I took on the role of like strategist and coach with my clients, because I found that the strategy is wonderful, but having someone to step you through that strategy along the way makes it much more likely that you're actually going to accomplish what we've set out to do in the strategy. And then I can manage all of the team members based on like having that strategy in mind and knowing the clients really well. So our agency is really built around like a high touch experience where we work with fewer clients, but we get to know them really well. They're often working with me in a coaching relationship. And then I can hand select the team members that I think are going to be appropriate for their job and what they need to accomplish, and then kind of be that overall guiding force. And I love that because I'm much more interested in like the big picture than in the tiny details. Like tech stuff, I'm proficient at, but the detail pieces, it makes me want to tear my hair out. Whereas I can get into a strategy and get lost, in flow for hours. So I think part of deciding on your role in the agency is just really focusing on amplifying your strengths, and then handing off the things that are maybe in your wheelhouse but not like your superpowers.
Oh, totally. And I think that most people get so in the weeds that they can't get out of their own way, right? Like they have a problem letting their team do their job. They hire someone to do the thing and then they don't let them do it, right? They're like they have to approve every single thing, or they just get to be in the way.
Yes.
Totally think that's a big thing. And there are tons of things that we should not be doing. It takes me like 3 hours to make a graphic. I get real excited about it. I make it, I post it, and then I think I'm done for the week. And everyone's like, yeah, well, we need like 4 more a day. And I'm like, damn it. I don't know how to do this. Like, give me a spreadsheet, give me an SOP. I know how to do that. Give me like the strategy or the coaching. I like that part. But like graphics to me they're just not natural. So yes, like totally giving away that. And I love this idea of what you're doing. So you're doing like you're the coaching piece, and then you have a team that will help them with whatever they need help with.
Yeah. So that's something that I had to kind of, figure out. I had this feeling that like, I enjoyed orchestrating the agency work even, and I always had a strategy piece. I have a product called the Love Your Biz Blueprint, which is how people start working with me, where we craft a strategy for the next 6 to 12 months. And then the idea is they can take that and execute on their own or with their own team, or they could hire my agency to do it. So I always had that strategy piece. But what I figured out is that there needed to be more support in place for a lot of the entrepreneurs that I worked with. And I find that for myself. I have had a business coach for the past 3 years, a business coach or a life coach for the past 3 years, because are you familiar with Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies?
I'm not.
Okay, so she has a framework, and it's basically about how do you respond to internal and external expectations. And she created it as a way to help people like understand the best ways to create new habits. So it's like kind of hacking yourself to get what you want. And my tendency is called an obliger, which means I respond extremely strongly to outside expectations, like a client deadline. I'll never miss a deadline. I'll always show up 100%. But I respond less strongly to internal expectations. So something like, I want to, spend an hour a day gardening or something like that. Right. And so having a coach in place to help like keep me aware of like what I'm setting out to do in my own life, and also accountability, has been huge for me. And so I realized a lot of the clients that I was working with, it's the same kind of thing where we can create a plan, we can even build out their assets, but having someone walk alongside them as like the implementation happens, and sometimes going through like the period of growth that happens and it's uncomfortable and all of those things, makes them much more likely to be successful in reaching those goals. So that's why, as I served more clients within the agency, I realized I want to shift it. And I didn't really have an example to follow, because what I have come down on is the agency now only does projects for people who are working with me in either a group or a one-to-one capacity. And it was a little bit difficult to come to that decision, because there's that scarcity that can come in. And it's like, well, if I say you have to work with me to get your website built by my team, that's a little scary, because not everybody's going to want a coach, right? Or a strategist in that way. But I also think it's one of the things that helps differentiate us from other service providers or agencies is that you do have that person who walks beside you the whole time. And it's not, we don't finish the project and then you're on your own. So for people who are looking for more of that support, it's really valuable to them to have it. But it took a little time to come to that conclusion that, all right, we're doing this.
Right? Like, it's very hard to say, I'm gonna do only this now, right? Like,
Yes.
that's so
Yeah.
scary. It's so
Mm-hmm.
scary. Like, so many people that like the whole idea of a niche or picking a thing is scary because you want to do all the things. And everyone's like, no, but
Mm-hmm.
I could offer anything. I want to help so many people. But like, you help more people by saying, no, this is what I'm really good at. I do this thing.
Well, and I think the more people you serve who fall into a certain niche or category, the better you become at serving that niche. And so it's
Yes.
like a self-fulfilling, you know, I don't know if that's the right word, but it feeds on itself, right?
Yeah, you
And
become that
so
expert to those people.
exactly. Yeah.
So when you're doing this strategy, what kind of strategy is it? Is it a marketing strategy? Is it a content strategy? Business in general?
Yeah, I love that question. So it started out as overall business strategy. And then I realized I wanted to help people build businesses that also fit in really well with the lifestyle that they want. Because what I saw, not necessarily in my own business, but in other businesses around, was people creating these businesses that they thought was going to, tick the box of whatever they needed. Maybe it was a revenue goal, maybe it was they wanted to be seen as an expert in their field, but they were sacrificing so much to get there. And I think in business, there are so many shoulds out there around
Yes.
marketing and around even pricing and how we show up as business owners. And so, what I wanted to do was make sure that my strategy that I crafted was a business that would sustain not just the business goals in terms of revenue and impact, but also the lifestyle goals. And so, now when I do a strategy, we talk about things like, how do you prefer to work? Because the Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 is like not the only option, right? Maybe you want to work in really intense bursts and then take a few weeks off at a time. Maybe you only want to work 3 months a year. Maybe you want to work 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. Like there's a lot of
Yeah,
different
totally.
options. And then what are your goals outside of your business that your business can help support? So, like somebody who wants to move to another country and run a business remotely in a time zone that's different than where their customers are living. We talk about all of those things so that whatever we build a year, 2 years down the line, even if it's commercially successful, they're not waking up and seeing like, oh, this isn't actually the life I wanted to live. Because I went through that,
Yes.
I didn't like my lifestyle as a teacher. And then I've had seasons in my business where I'm like, this isn't fun right now. Like
Yeah.
my coach asked me a question, and the answer that came up stuck out to both of us, and it was like, how do you know when you've taken on too much? And I thought about it for a second, and I realized it's when everything on my to-do list feels urgent, like for the day, right? Like it has to be done today. I've
Yeah.
taken on too much because you don't have that space to do some of that more creative planning and thinking, and
Oh, yeah, your
everything
brain
feels like
can't think like
today.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
you need
exactly.
space.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
And so that's something that, like, through the strategy piece, we try and be aware of. But often it includes, this is what is going to set you apart. I like to include a section. There's a written document that goes along with the strategy, and it's like what makes you unique. And that's really the basis for building marketing from, right? What's going to make you stand out. And then what are your goals for the next 6 to 12 months? What are your longer term goals? And what are the pieces that I think are going to help you get there? So for somebody like a coach, that might be like, what packages make sense for like your revenue goals and how you want to serve people. For somebody who's a service provider, maybe it's like, what do we need to make sure is on your website so that people understand like how you provide services, or creating a VIP day. I love VIP days. I think they're amazing. And so it's really taking a comprehensive look at the next 6 to 12 months in service to like some of those longer term goals. And sometimes we make tech recommendations and that kind of stuff too.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. I love all the idea of building your own business and then hating it, I
Mhm.
think is crazy, yet most of us do it at some point, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
most of us, I want to say all of us go out on a limb here, but where there's one to be one day, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like,
Yeah.
let's burn it to the ground. I don't want to do this. I'm going to change everything. And sometimes that's just 5 minutes of freak out. And then you go right back to like, okay, let me get my life together. Let me
Mhm.
change some things instead of burning it all down. Um, but yeah, we do that all the time. And I think
Oh,
there's so
sure.
much guilt in it. Like you were talking about when you want to work.
Mhm.
There's so much guilt around that because people are like, you shouldn't work Saturdays and Sundays. And I'm like, I was on a paddleboard all day Friday. I'm gonna like switch
Exactly.
things around. And you get
Yeah.
so much guilt of like what you should do. Like you were saying, there's so many shoulds. So
Yes.
if I say, oh, I'm gonna spend the last week my son has camp, and go and hang out with my husband by ourselves because we have, a month of kid back,
Mhm.
then I'm gonna work on a Saturday afternoon. And it's totally fine with everyone else. But there's so much guilt and judginess sometimes. And
Oh,
you have
I
to rule that
agree.
out.
Yeah. I do most of my work on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Wednesday is my do life day where I'll get a haircut or go to the chiropractor. I get a massage a couple weeks a month, like a couple times a month, that kind of thing. And then Fridays are like my flex day. But I put in like 5 hours yesterday because on Friday, my daughter and I, she's 8, we're going to IKEA. We're having a mommy date at IKEA because we
Nice.
both love IKEA. And I used to like really feel guilty for working on a Wednesday because like I say I only work 20 hours a week and I take these 2 days, for myself. And then here I am working. But then I realized that's ridiculous because, that's why we build these flexible schedules is to choose what's right for us. And sometimes what's right for us this week is different than what's right for us next week. And the
Yes.
important thing is just to tune into that. And I think that's why, last year I was like, I need to put my money where my mouth is in terms of really leaning into that idea of finding alignment in my business and freedom and flexibility. And so I created a mantra for myself, which is follow the fun. And it's all around like both like finding that alignment and then taking action on it, because sometimes I think it's like we know what we want, but it's hard overcoming the shoulds and the guilt and all of the voices that are wanting our attention, and just saying like what feels fun in this moment, what feels right in this moment. And so I worked with a coach once, and she was like, the first person or the first thing to pay attention to is yourself, and then serve your clients, and then everything else. And with myself, I include like my family with that too. And that's something I strive for, is to put myself first. I don't always achieve
It's
it.
hard. It's really hard, right? Like
Yeah.
I get to the end of the day and I'm like, there was 4 things that I wanted to do for myself today, and that didn't happen.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's so hard when you feel like you're being pulled in all these directions
Yeah.
and you're home, right? Like if you're in an office, you're kind of quarantined in this place where there's nobody else talking to you. Or, I'm saying like the outside world, not just your
Yeah.
colleagues, but like when I'm home, like the dog's got to go out or the kids got to make lunch, or there's things to do that you get pulled away, and then all of a sudden none of the things that I wanted to do for myself have
Right.
happened today, and then it just keeps going.
And it's
So
so important, I think, to honor ourselves, because that's what prevents those moments of burning the business down, right? I
yeah.
like to think of my business, sometimes it's like an angry, hungry monster that's demanding to be fed. And then what I want it to be is a cute, cuddly monster that's giving me lots of money to do the things that I want to do. And so
That's
like
great visual.
sometimes it's like figuring out, okay, what monster am I dealing with today, and like what are the action steps I can take. And a lot of times if I'm in that space of like, this is horrible, why am I doing this, burn it all down, it's like, all right, I need a break. Like I've been putting in too many hours, or I've been putting too much pressure on myself to, because I think a lot of us are perfectionists or recovering perfectionists. And take a step back, take a walk, take a nap, take a day off, whatever I can, make work. And usually after a good night's sleep, I wake up and I'm like, oh, I actually love my business, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's this whole idea of like this everything's an emergency. Everything is urgent. I used to work on Wall Street. I was at Lehman Brothers for years. And one of the big bond salesmen would come over and be like, I'm taking Kelly for beers. And my team would be like, no, you're not. He's like, yeah, because he was a big deal and he could do that. And he would get to the bar and I'm like, how are we here on like it's Friday at noon? And why am I at the bar with you? And he was like,
Mhm.
Kelly, we're not saving lives. We're bond traders. Like we make other people money. Like nothing is life or death here. Drink your beer. Like
Mm.
everything will be there on Monday. And it was such a wonderful reminder because he was a big deal at a big deal place. And he was like, yeah, yeah, whatever.
What a
We're not
great
saving lives,
example. Yeah, what
you
a great
know?
example of, perspective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Because
when we're in our
everything
own
there
business.
was urgent,
Yes,
except,
exactly.
you
And in
know?
our own businesses, you know, there's something we've invested a lot of time, love, and energy into. Everything can feel a bit life or death, but then you
Hmm.
take a step back and you're like, no, I have an actual real life, and this is just one piece of it,
Yes.
and not the whole thing. And maybe that's, you know, the difference is like letting it consume us as if that's the only piece, as opposed to understanding that it's just one part. Actually, I do a monthly follow the fun workshop, and we do a different topic or guest every month, but at the beginning of every single one of them we do a check-in. And I kind of tongue in cheek, I built a funometer. It's just like a little circle pie, if you imagine. And
Okay.
it's like we look at 5 different areas to say, like, how fun does this feel this month? And how fun does this feel? Things like revenue and our marketing and the clients we're serving and our offers or the products that we're selling. And then that kind of helps create a picture of like, how is our whole life feeling? And it's just as valuable for me as it is for the people who come to the workshops to have that monthly, you know, moment of reflection to say, like, okay, in the coming month, what do I want to create a little more balance around? And in the past month, what went really well, and what do I feel like, you know, maybe could be improved? And celebrate the wins, and then like look for the areas of growth. And I think that's something that I've learned through the journey of building my agency and my coaching business is that moment of reflection is where the magic happens. It's not in the doing and the doing and the doing. It's in the stepping back and just being with, you know, with our experiences and allowing ourselves to reflect on that.
I wholly agree. Like when I'm working, I can't think of anything. I can't be creative. And then I love to sit with large pieces of paper. I'm a person who has to write things down.
Yeah.
Large pieces of paper, whiteboards. Like my office, as you can see in the podcast, you can't see it, but my room is all windows. Like my whole room is windows. So my dream is to have a wall where I could put an enormous whiteboard. Like,
Mm,
but I can't do it in here. To just be able to write all the things. Like I just want to be able to doodle and think everything out. Because you need that space to like get things out instead of thinking, what do I need to check off? What do I need to put in the spreadsheet? What do I need to create? Like those kind of things. So
yeah.
like giving yourself that space. I've been doing that at the pool, which sounds silly, but I have
Oh,
a
cool.
remarkable, and my kids playing in the pool. We're at the, the community pool, and I'm just sitting there and I'm doing nothing but sitting like underneath a tree, trying to just like let my brain come out.
I love that.
So that's good. So
Yeah,
let's get in the nitty gritty a little bit. How is
sure.
your team structured? How is your business
Oh,
structured?
yeah. So we're a very small team. I have an operations assistant who I work with regularly. Like we have a weekly meeting on Mondays, and we kind of talk about the plan for the week. We check in on any agency projects that are happening. And she's the go-between between me and my agency team members often. Like I'll say, can you check in with so and so about this, blah 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 blah. And then so she's, you know, contracted for a certain number of hours a week, and we flex on that if we need to. And then the rest of my team is on a like a subcontractor basis, and so they have their own businesses as well, but I bring them in for projects whenever we have a client project to take on. So they're all over the world. One of them is in Australia, another in South Africa. Time zones are something that we, you know, work around. But all of them are either day rate I want to say day rate professionals. They are professionals, but I don't know. There seems like there should be a better word. Day rate subcontractors. Anyways, they're day raters. They're all day raters, and they have experience with that. But sometimes because of time zones, we shift that structure a little bit, where maybe we build a website in 2 or 3 days instead of in a 1 day, mega build. And we have an availability calendar. So if they're ever going to be, if they're fully booked in their own businesses or they're on vacation or anything like that, they just fill that out. So I have an idea. And so when a project comes up, I just look and see who's available, who I think would be the best fit for the project. And then my operations assistant helps to coordinate a lot of the project details.
Okay.
I'm there, getting regular check-ins and monitoring what's going on. And then sometimes like I'll do a review before it goes out to the client, just to make sure it's in line with what we're looking for and that kind of thing. So I'm still definitely involved in the day-to-day operations of the agency side. But I'm not the project manager by myself, I guess. I kind of share that with my operations assistant. Yeah, does that answer your question about how that's structured? Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So how are you getting the work out to them since you have a team all over? I think that's an interesting thing to ask too. Like how are you dealing with getting the work to all the people? Is that your ops assistant? Do you have project management, like a tool? Like how are you getting them to know what's going on?
Yeah. So we have SOPs for basically the flow of a project. So for example, if we're doing a website with copywriting and branding, that's a 6-week project. And we know like on week 1, this happens, week 2, this happens, that type of thing. But it's my operations assistant doing a lot of the communication with the contractors, and we use Slack for that. So for each project, we'll just create a Slack channel, and we try and keep all of the communication between the team and there. And then my ops assistant or myself is checking in with the client as needed if there are things we need from them. We don't invite them into our Slack channel, but sometimes we are in their Slack channels if we're also coordinating with their team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Like these are all the little things, right? Like it's all these little tips. You're like, all right, so how do you work that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So do you have team meetings at all? Are you that kind of like, we don't here because we have people work in different time zones and they're contractors and I don't like meetings. So like if I don't have to be in them, I love seeing their faces, but I hate random meetings for no reason. So are you having those kind of weekly things or is it much more on their own to get things done?
Yeah. So right now I'm focusing on filling my one-to-one coaching, because I don't always have coaching clients who need agency support. Like I do just business coaching as well as like the agency side. So I'm focusing on filling my capacity for one-to-one coaching clients. So I haven't been promoting the agency as much. And then once that is full, we'll do a group program that will include a business build out. And so we'll have more projects. Right now, we usually have 1 or 2 projects going on at a time. When we have a higher volume of client projects, I think meetings are a good idea. Like even if it's every other week type of thing. But a lot of that type of stuff can also happen in the Slack channel for the size of agency that I have. I do meet with my ops assistant weekly. And then for all of the other subcontractors, I like to check in with them if we haven't done a project recently, at least once a quarter. So I'll just see like I have a retainer product for people we've done web design for where they can get maintenance from us. And so I'll check in with the person who provides the maintenance once a quarter and just make sure everything's going okay on her end. When it's about time for someone's contract to renew, just checking in to make sure that she's still available to continue servicing that contract, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, for the other, like the web designer and the graphic designer and the copywriter, we're often touching base through the project, and they don't necessarily see a lot of the other team members. I do think it's great for team building, and one thing that's important to me is that we feel like a team. The women that I work with, we're an all-woman team. They're amazing, and we all enjoy each other's company. But like you said, meetings for meetings sake don't make a lot of sense to me either. And so I think, just like I said, for the scale of what I do, it doesn't make sense to have a regular, like, weekly or monthly meeting with the team.
Yeah. I feel like it's hard to get a lot of schedules together.
Hmm.
And if there's not a really good reason to do it, like we're all working on a project, a lot of my teammates are working on specific clients. So there's
Yeah.
not a lot of overlap. So like we had a holiday party and I'm
Hmm.
realizing that I should have had a summer party. I need to get on that. But we don't really, they don't really need to talk a lot unless, and then they do on Slack. So that's, I
Hmm.
would love to, I would have loved to have drinks with everyone all the time, I think. But
Yeah.
having those like weekly meetings, I'm always curious because I think some people love them and I have been in enough meetings in my life. I feel like I've hit my quota for meetings.
All full on meetings.
Right. So yeah, like yeah, that's I always find it interesting to see like where people fall on that.
Hmm.
So how do you find your team members?
Mm.
How do you find them? How do you hire them? How do you bring them on and onboard them? Do you have a process for all of
Yes,
that?
I definitely do. And I actually have a workshop that I did. I think it was June's workshop, where I went into like really fine detail and showed like the examples of the applications that I use and stuff like that. But
Today's podcast is being sponsored by the Get Your Agency Together group coaching program. This is a program I built for online service providers who either want to start an agency or to grow the agency they have so that it's organized, sustainable, and profitable. Over 5 months, you'll be working with me and the rest of your cohort to break down and rebuild different parts of your business so that they align with the life you really want to build. The modules include systems you'll need, offers you'll make, the team you'll need to build, and the journey your clients will take. Most importantly, you'll have to look at all of these things through the lens of the goals and the values you bring to the table. For more details, go to reynoldsobm.com and join the waitlist. You'll be the first to know when the program opens. See you there.
But basically, it's a 3 to 3.5 part process, where the first is like, I call it I think I call it an interest form for whatever the position is. And I just use a Google form for it. And at the top, there's a space for text, and I put like, what She Loves Her Biz is all about. So we work with a wide variety of people. We believe Black Lives Matter, love is love. We have a diverse clientele. I put it out there right at the beginning because I want to make sure that the people that are filling out the application are going to be excited about working with those clients.
Yeah.
And I put a little bit about the business. I put a link to my website, and then list out basically what we're looking for. I like to include a bonus. So I'm looking for somebody doing these things. These are the qualities. If you if you are blah, 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 if you are not blah, blah, blah. And then bonus, if you, for example, have prior operations assistant experience or something like that, but not necessary. So something that would be a nice to have, but not necessarily something that I have to see in the application. And the first round of application is really just to give me a snapshot of them. I don't ask for specific levels of aptitude in different, for example, like platforms or apps or stuff like that, but I ask if they have experience with, and then I have a huge list of things like WordPress, ConvertKit, all of the different types of things that they might be doing within somebody's business. And some of it I'm looking for specific, like if I had a web designer who didn't design in WordPress, that wouldn't work because we just do WordPress websites. But others, I just want to see that they have a range of skills. And then I have a few questions that help me immediately eliminate people or pass them on to the next round. So, for example, one of the questions is, so-and-so sent an email saying that a friend referred them to us and they'd like to know more about our services. How do you respond? And it has a few more details than that, but I see what their response is. And on my website, I have a discovery call link. And so I want to see that they've taken the trouble to go see, like, how do people get in contact with Audra or get a call with her scheduled or those types of things. And it's amazing. Some people like switch the names where like the person who referred, they're writing, to them, those types of things. I'm looking to see, like, can they have a friendly tone? Can they find the right information on their own? Because I don't want to have to micromanage my team. I want a team that I can give, this is the goal that we want to accomplish. Here's our company best practices, go for it. Right. I have a question about pay. And so like, sometimes people don't understand that working for an agency, you can't charge the price that you would charge if you found the client, if you took on the risk for, the client satisfaction, that kind of thing. And so, for example, when I was hiring for my operations assistant position, I had people who came back at $4 an hour. I had people who came back at $80 an hour, right? And so it helps me eliminate. I don't mind if they ask for a little bit more than what I have in mind for the position, but I need to be able to negotiate with them to find something that works, for my budget too. So if it's too low in my mind, they don't have enough business experience to understand they should be charging more. And if it's too high, then they're just, not a right fit for my budget. And so when I go through that first round of applications, I'm quickly, throwing out some of the applications based on a few key questions. And then for all of the people who kind of pass that first round, I send a second round and I ask for a video of why they want to work for the business to just kind of see how they are on screen. Every position that I have is at some point going to be client facing. So I want to see how do you present yourself? Can you, speak in an engaging way? But I also provide my own video on that second round application, and just say, like, I wouldn't ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do. So here's a little bit about why I'm excited to hire for this position and, things like that. And in that one, I'm asking for more, like later on in the application, I'm asking for more technical, like understanding what they're technically good at. So rate your ability on these key pieces of software or applications or platforms. I give them some scenarios like, if this happened, what would your response be? That kind of thing, just to see how they work in a team and how they could maybe work with clients. And so some of the people who get that second round application don't fill it out. I think it's more work than what they necessarily want to do, but that's great. Like, to me, if you're willing to take that second step, that shows that you're really interested in the position. And then the third round is an in-person interview with me. And so, and it's more just like a conversation. What are you looking for, etc. Here's what, any questions I have or anything like that. And then the half part is, sometimes if I'm hiring for like a specific balance to the team, like, I know I'm a very quick start. I have an idea and I'm ready to go for it. I needed somebody who was a little less of a quick start, who could kind of balance that. And so sometimes I'll ask for, I'll pay for it, but ask them to take like a Clifton Strengths or a, aptitude test or something like that. Yeah.
Colby or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a
Yeah,
3.
exactly, the Colby
I'm a
too.
3 quick start. So
Yeah.
I'm a research till the next model comes out. So how do you pick people? Is it very much what the rubric you've created, or is it more on gut?
Both. So I'm a connector. I love people, even though I'm an introvert. I love to connect like individually with people. And so if it were up to me, I would want to hire everybody, or at least the ones that's, that I click with. So when I get the second round interviews, which are the ones that I really like put the most energy into, the first round is kind of a pass fail type of thing. The second round, I'm looking for people that I feel like I can easily work with. They like, I have, we all have our own personalities and how we like to work. One of the questions I have is like, how do you like to get feedback? How do you respond to criticism? That kind of thing. And so I go with my gut, but I also look at, do they have the skills that we need, or are we going to have to train them? Where are they in terms of the budget? Can we afford to pay them a little more if I really, really like them, or those types of things? The last hiring that I did there were two really strong candidates. And so I went with the one that was in the same time zone as I am, because that just makes things easier.
It is easier.
Yeah. I will say I also tend to hire from just personal connections that I've made. So, my first tech guru was just somebody who was in a course that I took, and we connected, and she did a little bit of work for me in my business, and I really liked what I saw. And so when I started the agency, I guess that's how I filled my first positions. Actually, it was just the connections I had already created.
Mm-hmm.
And then later down the line, when I needed to hire for maybe skills that I didn't already have connections for, I asked in a couple Facebook groups, I posted my job description, the round one, and then like went from there. But I get people who reach out and say like, are you accepting, you know, new
Mm-hmm.
partnerships and that kind of thing on a not infrequent basis as I've
Yeah.
gotten a little bit more well known. And I'm always open to that, because I think that shows initiative. And oftentimes there are people who have tried to run an agency and decided like it wasn't for them, or they've tried to build
Yes.
their own freelance business, and then realize they don't want to have to find the clients. They just want to be able to do their favorite thing, which is whatever work they do.
And I feel like those are the perfect people to work with agencies, because
Mm-hmm.
they are so good at what they do, and they have realized that they do not want to do a lot of marketing. They have
Right.
not want to do all of the other stuff you've got to do to bring in clients. So I feel like, and those are really, they want to do a great job. They just don't want to do that part. So if you do that part,
Exactly.
it's this great partnership.
And I think I love hiring people who have tried it on their own, and either they're just looking for a little more stability by working within an agency, or they're like, I just want to do the work because they understand a little bit more about like what it's like to run a business, and how you
Mm-hmm.
have to, even if I would love to pay everyone on my team $100 an hour, I think they're worth it. But the reality is we can't do that. Right. And
Yeah.
so like, if they have a little bit of business under their belt, but then decided it wasn't exactly what they wanted, they come to it with a little more understanding of how things work in a business.
So on that, how do you pay your people? You don't have to give me numbers if you don't want to, but like, how does that work? Is there a percentage of whatever you're getting paid by the client that you like to stay within? Like, how do you kind of set up the money coming in, the money going out, so that you actually make some money?
Yeah, that was something that I struggled with.
Yeah.
And I'll say, like, in my first 6 months of business, I had a 23K month, but almost all of that money went out to other people.
Right out the door again, right?
So
I see it
I
happen
always use
all the
that as
time.
like, I use that as a mental example of like, when you see those big number months from people, that's not what matters. What matters is how much do you actually get to keep of that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so now what I do is I try and basically I pay the contractor a third. My goal is to charge 3 times the amount of the cost of service provided, I guess is a way to say it. So they keep a third. The business, business expenses and all of that keeps a third, and then I pay myself a third. That's like the goal. But then I have services that kind of work within a range, like 2.5 to 3 times the cost is what I try and stay within, because some things are just more profitable. If I'm coaching a client, I get to keep almost all of that because I'm the one providing the service, right? If we're doing, certain types of builds are I have a higher or a lower profit margin on, but it all kind of equals out to fit into that framework.
And you guys are doing packages, right? A coaching package or the project package, whatever that kind
Yeah.
of thing is. It's not like an ongoing retainer of like a bucket of hours. It's much more like scope driven. This is what we're going to do
Yeah.
for you. Okay.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. The
Which I
only
think
thing we
is
have on
easier
retainer.
for
Yeah,
like for
I
mapping all this money out. It's kind of sometimes easier to like, okay, these are the things we're going to do. I'm going to have these people do these things so you can match those up so you can pay yourself.
exactly. And I always, when I use profit first in my business accounting. And
Mhm.
so when I sign a client, immediately I know I've already talked to the contractors and like verified their availability. Well, I haven't, but my ops assistant has, right?
It has been verified.
Verified their availability and the rate that we agree on to do the work. And then I immediately put that into a contractor holding account so that it's there. And then I do my profit first based on everything else that's coming into the business, like what's left over after I pay the
Oh,
contractors.
that's
Does
great.
that make sense?
It
Yeah.
does. Yeah. I have mine. It's a little skewed, but mine goes into the OpEx account because same thing. But I like
Mm-hmm.
that idea of having that ahead of time, so that you can't spend it on the right. You
I know.
pay. People like to get paid. Like they like to get
Exactly.
paid on time. It's a really good thing
Yes.
to keep up as a
Well,
culture in your company.
and I think both from like that obliger where I want to make sure my team always gets, what I've promised them. And then
Hmm.
also, I'm personally interested in personal finance and for me, it's easiest if the money disappears and then I don't have to remind myself, oh, but I need, like $2,500 to pay this person and 500 to pay this one. Like I can make my business decisions more easily based on that. I will
Oh yeah.
say something I did to up level my business this year was hire a bookkeeper. So I had always kept my own books, and then that's one of those detail things that I'm capable of doing it, but it does not bring me joy
Uh
to
huh.
like reconcile accounts and stuff. And so that's been really helpful because she's also able to help me see kind of the snapshot, not just for this month, but also over time, like what are the trends, how are they fitting in with our goals, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I keep a daily like we call it a goal tracker. But it's like, what have we done daily? We have different accounts. There's some older accounts that are actually hourly. So we kind of rack up these hours. They're like, they've been around so long. That's
Mm-hmm.
just like, they're grandfathered in. And like seeing that come in every day, like I know exactly where we are. Where are we going? Like I know on a Tuesday if we hit my goal for this, or you know what I mean? Like I love that. I am the detail person. I'm the one
Yeah.
who's like in there, like, oh, let me see where everything is. How many more days before I've got to hit this goal? So I love how our brains all work differently.
Yes, exactly. We need everyone, we need that in
Yeah.
life and in business for sure. Yeah.
So what makes your agency different?
Hmm. I love that question. I think what we stand for is building wealth as a catalyst for change that I want to see and my team wants to see in the world. And so we're coming at everything that we do with the question of like, how can we build this business for our clients that's going to help them make the changes that they want to see. And often, our clients are almost 100% women. We will work with men, of course, but they have to subscribe to our philosophies in terms of how I see the best ways to build businesses. And our driving force is really around women creating wealth as an opportunity for change. So the people that we work with tend to be healers or coaches or experts in areas that are, making the world a more just, equitable, and fun place to live in. And so I think that is part of what helps us stand out. And then also just the personal investment we make into each client. I never wanted to build $1 million a year huge agency business. I like to keep, I want to make money. There's nothing wrong with having $1 million a year business. Maybe that'll happen someday, but that's not my driving force. My driving force is like connection and relationships with the clients we serve so that they can in their own way, make the world a better place.
I love that. And this plays in one of my favorite quotes. and I don't remember, I don't know if it was Denise Duffield Thomas or someone else, but it was, imagine what the world would look like if a lot more good people had a lot more money.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I think there's so much conditioning over the years of
Mhm.
money is evil. We shouldn't want it. We should just want to do good in the world. And I'm like, yeah, but even if you want to save all the dogs, they need to eat. So if you had lots
Right.
of money, you could buy them all food. Money isn't a terrible thing. You can really, really make some change with it. If you,
It's
like, the goodness is in you. It's not the money being good or bad.
money is neutral. And I
Yes.
think it's a question of like, sometimes we see false choices. Like, I can either be a good person or I can be wealthy. And
Right.
that's a narrative that is like interwoven
Oh, hard.
really
We are
like all
taught
throughout our
that.
culture. Yes. But I like to see it as a yes and. Yes, I can be a good person and I can be wealthy and use that wealth to make the world a better place.
Right. Like, a lot of things are easier when you can buy things or you can pay
Totally.
things. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, if you want, if you want to, whatever your thing is that you want to see resolved or fixed in the world, having more money is going to give you more power to make that change that you want to see.
And that's it. I mean, getting a voice into the places you want,
Hmm.
Congress, lobbying, and
Yeah.
all of the things, all the change that you want to see, environmentalism, it's great. I've been at lots of marches, but it doesn't
Hmm.
have the same impact as if you can put some money behind it. And that
Yeah,
money comes with power. So I love
exactly.
that part of it. This is a big thing with me.
I
So
love that. And I think that's more and more part of the conversation that I'm seeing. Like I see more people talking about the way, and I have a lot of feelings about capitalism and like how it has worked and it hasn't worked, and the people it's served and the people that it's, caused pain. But our reality is that's the system we're operating within. And we can't change that necessarily until we, I don't want to say we can't change it. We right now in the system that we're operating within, the best way to kind of equal out some of the corporate stuff that I think a lot of us are realizing is not benefiting our planet or our lifestyles or our humanness, our humanity, is to fight with the same weapon that's being used to hold some of us down. So I think for me, building wealth, I used to think of money as I've always been interested in money, but I used to see it as like I was guilty when I
mhm.
started to create wealth. Like I've been investing for a long time. I consider myself financially independent. But there was a lot of guilt that came with that because who am I to have so much and other people have so little, right?
Mhm.
I made it a values judgment on myself. And then over time and coaching and therapy and all of those things, I realized that the money isn't the problem. It's what people do with the money that's the
Yeah.
problem. And so I can choose to do good things with my money, and that released me from a lot of that guilt.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things is to be able to, if someone's in a jam or
Mhm.
they don't have it or like they're really upset, like I can just fix that
Right.
easily with like
Yeah.
a little bit of money. Like that's one of my favorite things is just be like, I can fix this. Like I can fix this problem. Um,
When I run a follow the fun workshop, one of the things that was important to me is that it had a mission bigger than even just helping spread the message of follow the fun, which has been really impactful for me. I wanted it to have a giving back component. And so every workshop, there's a small, like a $7 fee right now to join the workshop because I want people who are going to show up. But we take that money, and if it's a month where I'm teaching on my own, I invest it or donate it in a cause that I support. And if it's a guest, then we invest it in a cause that they support. So I had a guest last week. We raised over 12,000 or 1,200, sorry, over $1,200 for Kiva loans for women
oh,
entrepreneurs.
that's wonderful. I've been so
Yeah,
interested in those. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
so I
great.
got to help 10 women entrepreneurs, both in the US and all over the world, get a little support in their business. And I think we can create businesses that pay us abundantly, but that also do good, both large and small.
I love that. All right. So before we wrap up here,
Yes.
what do you think is one of the things that you love most about running an agency?
Mm. It's working with my team and seeing the results that our clients get. And so, like I said, we're invested in our client's success. And so when that success happens, we're celebrating the success with the client. And then the team that I've gathered, they're all women that I admire and I enjoy spending time with. And so just getting to see them do really good work, but also like have a really fun relationship with them is very fulfilling. And I enjoy like supporting them as well, like knowing that the money that I'm paying them is going to help them and their families, gives me a lot of satisfaction.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts as well. I love that. And then what do you think is one of the hardest parts of having an agency?
I think it's just trusting in yourself and in the process. So I think about all the decisions you make as the leader, right? And it's something that I've gotten more comfortable with over time, but of course I'm human, and so there's still doubts, and you wonder if you're going in the right direction, or you have a difficult situation that you've never encountered. I had my first workshop refund request through PayPal for my $7 workshop.
Oh my goodness. That you're donating.
Yeah, that we're donating. And so it's like, you sometimes have that moment of, oh, what do I do? And sometimes, our emotions can get activated. And then it's stepping back into that leadership and saying, you know, this is actually something to celebrate. It means enough people are coming to the workshop that, we're just, there's a certain percentage always that's going to come back. Right. So I think those new experiences are probably the hardest part, just figuring out how to handle them. But then, the next time I get a refund request, I have an email template response drafted and I can, I can
Totally.
handle it. And I saw something one time I had to do with parenting where it was the daughter's first time, rebelling and calling her mom the B word. And instead of like freaking out, the mom bought a cake and put like the quote, like, "I hate you, you're a B" on the cake. And they both had a chance to cool off. And then she was like, you're independent and like, this is part of it. She celebrated it. And I've always kept that story in mind. And you mentioned Denise Duffield Thomas. I really like her work. I reread Chillpreneur when I need a little like boost.
Yes. Yes, I do as well.
and I think about how some of these difficult things as an agency owner or as any kind of business owner or leader are really opportunities to celebrate that you've reached that milestone. And so it's not somebody hated me in the workshop and they want their money back. It's that, which wasn't actually even the situation, but it's that my workshops are now reaching enough people that we had this come up. And I will say, in the instance for this request, they never got the emails, even though they were all sent through the email service provider. It gives me an opportunity to say, how can we make our process better so that, maybe on the confirmation page, we say, if you don't get the email, please reach out to this address. Perhaps you put your address in wrong or something like that. Right?
I spell my name wrong all the time in my email.
Yeah.
I've been married for almost 10 years and I've been a Reynolds and I still like miss an L or something. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's possible.
Right.
Audra, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I have loved these conversations, or this conversation. Tell everyone where we can find you.
Yeah. So my website is shelovesherbiz.com. If you're interested in attending a workshop, you can go to shelovesherbiz.com/FTF workshop. And I also offer free business advice. So I have a self-guided check-in you can fill out, and I'll personally review each one and give you some email feedback on a business question that you might have. So that's available at shelovesherbiz.com/FTF.
Awesome. And I will put all of that good information in the show notes. And thank you so much. I've had such a great time today.
It's been a true pleasure. Thank you so much.
And I will see everyone next week. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you have an agency or want to create one, come join my Facebook community, Get Your Agency Together, where we talk all the things growing and scaling your agency. For show notes and more info on all the things, head over to reynoldsobm.com. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook at ReynoldsOBM,